Alright, I wanted to do a preview for the card featuring Miguel Cotto versus Yoshihiro Kamegai. Starting with the main event, Cotto versus Kamegai. A lot of people aren't really high on this fight, and it's very understandable why. The fact that Cotto's, old, long-standing name in the sport of boxing, and just the fact that, they pretty much see this fight as a mismatch between Cotto and Kamegai. Feeling like Cotto could probably win this fight by whatever means he chooses, whether he chooses to outbox Kamegai or chooses to kind of punch it out with him. But actually, I think the latter would be a very, very bad move for Cotto. And considering the fact that Kamegai, I think, has actually improved the last couple of years. I think if you just watch the between the two fights that he had with Jesus Soto Carras, the first fight, was a very close, literally a evenly matched fight. It was basically a draw in the end, and I really wouldn't argue against it being a draw because they basically split every single round, and every single round was a swing round unto itself too. But the second fight was all Kamegai. Kamegai not only beat up Soto Cross, but he outboxed him. He was fighting out of a shoulder roll, funny enough, and he was doing it pretty damn successfully. Um, and the thing about Kamegai is he's actually the type of fighter that Cotto really doesn't like to fight. He's a very physical guy. He's got, fairly heavy hands. I mean, he doesn't have 24 knockouts and 27 wins for nothing. He comes with high pressure, has a solid degree of punch resistance, both to the chin and the body. Um, Cotto might be in trouble in this fight. Cotto might be in trouble in this fight. Like I've even said that, I think Kamegai can and will win. I mean, part of that is because I've never really necessarily been much of a fan of Cotto. But at the same time, I actually do legitimately give Kamegai a solid chance of beating Cotto because I just see the attributes in Kamegai that Cotto in the past has had a high amount of difficulty with. If you look at his fights, with not only recently, like against Canelo, but if you look back to Joshua Clottey, you look back to Ricardo Torres, you look back to Margarito, Pacquiao, guys, with good punch resistance, with heavy hands, and that are very aggressive and relentlessly so, give Cotto a lot of problems. Clottey wasn't even necessarily like the biggest puncher, the heaviest handed guy necessarily, but just like the physicality of him gave Cotto a ton of problems. Margarito broke him down and was even in the second fight starting to, make Cotto wilt just a tad before the ref stopped it. But it's been kind of a common theme, a common kind of running theme in Cotto's career. He's had difficulty with fighters that have the attributes of Kamegai, and so I really think, at the very least, that this fight is going to be a lot closer and a lot more competitive than people expect. If Cotto goes in there and blows out Kamegai, then all due respect and props to Cotto, because I actually would be very impressed if he managed to do that, because to date I haven't seen Kamegai like just thoroughly like bashed up like that. I've seen him outboxed. Alfonso Gomez did a fantastic job, especially in outboxing Kamegai. Johan Perez did a reasonably good job in giving Kamegai his first loss. Robert Guerrero acted like a damn fool and tried to freaking go head up with Kamegai and almost got put on his ass for his troubles. Got busted up pretty nicely in that fight. And that's something that Cotto needs to definitely avoid. It'd be better for him to be able to kind of stick and move, pick his spots and pick his power shots in fine fashion. And you basically utilize technical skill and timing to defeat Kamegai as opposed to like brute force. But Cotto is on the older side, hasn't been especially active recently, so things may catch up to him. Things may catch up to him in that regard as well, along with the fact that Kamegai is reasonably, I'd say, more kind of primed for this type of a fight. Cotto will have almost been out for 2 years, almost 2 years since he fought Saul Alvarez. So it's kind of an iffy situation as far as I see that going. On the undercard, actually, there's going to be a really good fight that I'm really interested in. It's going to be for the WBC Super Bantamweight Championship, held by Ray Vargas. He's going to be defending it against Ronnie Rios. And this was a fight that really surprised me. I'm really surprised that Golden Boy actually managed to get this fight. Partially because Ray Vargas is actually a Heyman managed fighter, and partially because, considering Rios's kind of history and like from what I've seen of Rios in the ring, most particularly in his only loss against Robinson Castellanos, is I don't really know if he matches up well against Ray Vargas. Like Ray Vargas is a tall, lanky guy who utilizes distance very nicely. Has some pretty nasty body punches. In utilizing that distance, I've kind of compared Vargas in the past to somewhat of like a poor man's Eric Morales. He has a very similar fighting style to Morales, to like a young Morales. And he's a pretty solid puncher, and reasonably strong as well. Not necessarily the most physical fighter, but he could definitely get down if the getting's down. And Ronnie Rios, even though he's a guy that kind of tries to be physical, he isn't necessarily. And I think that was kind of exposed against Castellanos. Castellanos was able to kind of pressure and push him back, and Rios kind of folded. Almost not unlike, interestingly enough, not unlike Cotto against Margarito. I see some of those same attributes in Rios that I've seen in Cotto, because Rios does have very good boxing skills, very quick hands, quick feet. He can outbox a lot of guys, and he has pretty good power as well. He has a lot of good snap and pop in his punches. It's entirely possible that maybe Castellanos was just a little bit too brutal for him at featherweight, and maybe super bantamweight is a bit better for Rios in terms of actual competitiveness. But at the same time, Ray Vargas isn't necessarily like, he's not some leaf light or small compact super bantamweight. He's a tall guy, and he's a guy that I could very easily see at some point in the future being a featherweight or even a super featherweight, given his length and his frame and everything. So in that fight, I definitely favor Vargas to win. I think in the way that Golden Boy just kind of throwing Rios in the deep end and seeing if he swims, basically, if he sinks or swims. Rios is a little bit more expendable, I'd imagine, for Golden Boy as compared to, Joseph Diaz, who himself is actually going to be in for a real fight against Jorge Lara real soon. I think that's going to be on the Canelo versus Golovkin undercard. My God, that's a fight. That is such a good fight. That is, I'm not even, I don't even care about Golovkin versus Canelo as much as I care about that fight, because that fight is serious. But I'll get to that in another video. But yeah, Rios is in it. He's up against it. He's in tough here against Ray Vargas. Ray Vargas is nothing to be messed around with. Very good fighter. That kind of wasn't able to get his shot. He was a guy that was a mandatory for Leo Santa Cruz for a good little while. Santa Cruz never actually wound up fighting him. He wound up actually having to fight for the vacant WBC title once Santa Cruz moved up. He actually was in line for a shot at Guillermo Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux never took it. So, Ray Vargas could have definitely had his nice big kind of come-up moment at that point. Incidentally, he actually wound up winning this title on the road against Gavin McDonnell over in the UK. Won it by majority decision, but frankly, that was an easy win for Vargas. Vargas just cleanly and comprehensively outboxed McDonnell. McDonnell had a couple of moments here and there. McDonnell's a tough guy. Not unlike his brother Jamie, world champion, bantamweight Jamie McDonnell. But Vargas just proved to be on another level. And really, I think that against Rios, he might prove to be on another level as well. Rios, however, he has shown the skills and the talent in the past to be a top-level fighter. If you look at some of the wins that he's garnered and the way that he's garnered them, against Jason Velez, Andrew Cancio, etc., he's shown some really good things in the ring. But it's just a matter of if he's pushed to that limit again against Vargas the way that he was against Castellanos, is he going to mentally break the same way that he did against Castellanos? And that remains to be seen. We shall see. If Vargas watched any of that tape, he'll definitely be, I'd imagine, looking to institute some of the same techniques that Castellanos used. And I think that he definitely can do them, because Vargas is a bit of a live wire in his own right. I didn't compare him to Eric Morales for no reason. So a couple of good fights. It's a little bit overshadowed by the fact that Mayweather versus McGregor is happening the same day and everything. But two really solid fights, honestly. The way that I see it, I think Cotto versus Kamegai is more competitive and more fun than it might look to be on paper for a lot of people. And Vargas versus Rios, I think, is a very, very interesting fight, because I think at the very least Rios is going to go out on the shield and make it a fun fight as he goes down. And if he happens to come out on top, then hey, we definitely have a new player in the super bantamweight division, because I think I've definitely thought very highly of Ray Vargas in the last couple of years, and I've really wanted to see him get the shot that he had been mandated for. And so it's kind of unfortunate that the top guys and the big names didn't want to fight him. So he's gonna have to come up in his own way. It looks like, but we shall see. We shall see if he manages to do it, or if Rios upends it and kind of reproves the promise that he had been shown up until he lost to Castellanos in that big upset loss. And that's maybe not necessarily too much shame in losing to Castellanos, considering what he's done since. Upsetting Gamboa and almost upsetting Jesús Corrales at super featherweight. Two weights that Castellanos doesn't even normally compete at. So all that said, I will catch you guys on the next one, and peace.